good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. We've got a very exciting and pertinent topic to discuss today, which is about addressing AI and analytics challenges in healthcare. We are going to be talking a lot about the trends and the technology and data challenges. But before I do that, let me introduce my panelists. First off, I have Ashin Antony. Been working with Ashin for quite a while now, and he's, I think, one of the best data and AI technologists out there. Ashin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks for your kind words, Manish. Hello, everybody. I'm Ashin Antony. I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Ignitho, and at large, the Chief Product Officer at Nuvio. My primary goal and my aspiration here is to make sure that the technologies are, properly provided to all these solutions that we put together. So from this context, what we have been doing over the last few months is to build this healthcare solution that is powered by AI that would enable the healthcare provider. So that is something that we'll be discussing in detail here. But overall, I'm very excited with the kind of implementation that we have been doing and the product that has come out. So looking forward to having many more such sessions and providing inputs on how things are going on from here. Thanks, Manish.
Thanks, Ashin. And next up, I'd like to introduce Dr. Doug Wisor. Dr. Doug Wisor brings a wealth of knowledge in the healthcare industry. Dr. Wisor, would you like to say a couple of words?
Sure. Thanks, Manish. Thanks for having me. So, as Manish mentioned, I'm a physician by training. I spent 25 years almost in the minimally invasive spine and pain space, and I'm a veteran of the U.S. Army. So 10 years of my career, I joined in the consolidation craze before it became all the rave in healthcare, and been with a private equity-backed platform known as National Spine and Pain Centers. I was the CEO of that organization for the last 5 years before stepping down last August. And we had grown to about 127 office and ASC-based locations across 13 states with over 300 providers offering minimally invasive spine and pain care. And I've worked with 4 different private equity sponsors during that 10-year period. So pretty intimately aware of some of the challenge of going from smaller to big organizations.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Wisor. That's a very unique combination of skills. So let me walk you through quickly the agenda for today. So first off, we are going to be talking about some of the key trends and priorities that are emerging in healthcare, which will set the stage for us to discuss how all of this landscape is currently fragmented and why we need integrated insights and what's the state of that data and AI landscape in the healthcare sector. Then Ashin is going to walk us through a reference architecture of how a vision for integrated insights could be enabled. And then we'll lead into a demo of Dr. KPIs, the solution that Ashin was talking about. And finally, we'll wrap up. And we are hoping that this will give you a good idea of why integrated insights are important, not just at a patient outcomes and a provider level, but also at the management level. And what are some of the key KRAs that need to be considered in order for us to drive and improve performance and ultimately the overall goal of excellent patient outcomes. So with that, let's get on to discuss. Let's go to the next slide, Ashin. And so this is where these are some of the key trends and upcoming innovations in the healthcare space. Dr. Wisor, would you like to take a couple of minutes to go through them?
Sure. Thanks. So listen, there's a lot of dynamics here at play, particularly in the U.S. healthcare system, which makes up, rapidly approaching 20% of the GDP. I think at last count it was over 18.7%. So it's a tremendous amount of healthcare expenditure. But despite that, we're still having significant challenges. And that really comes to not in my opinion, healthcare access problem, but a healthcare spending problem. So 10,000 people turn 65 every day in this country as the baby boomers age. But despite that, nearly a third of all physicians recently surveyed in the American Medical Association have expressed that they're going to step down from seeing patients within the next 2 years. So we have a real shortage of providers with an abundance of people entering the age of their life where they need most of their health care, with greater than 50% of your lifetime expenditure after the age of 65. So with that, there comes a tremendous need to use technology, whether it be virtual care and telehealth, or whether it be extenders of various types, whether it be nurse practitioners, PAs, and others that are able to provide services in a more cost-effective center, whether that's home health, for example, in an aging population. So virtual care and taking advantage of technology is going to be essential, especially in remote areas of the country where access is going to be particularly challenged with less providers. In addition to that, you have, obviously a focus on outcomes and what has given way to now, quality of care metrics has become value-based care metrics, where a more honest assessment is, can you provide the same quality of care in a lower cost setting? Whether it be migrating hospital care to outpatient settings, ambulatory surgery centers, office-based labs, offices, but can we provide the same quality of care but in the lower cost setting? And then finally, because of these demands on independent physicians in particular, you're seeing a frenetic amount of activity and consolidation, and that's coming in the form of hospital systems consolidating with other hospital systems. That comes with physician practices being bought out by hospital systems, and then private equity, where physicians who are trying to maintain autonomy and stay independent are aggregating together to navigate the complexity. And a lot of that is really based around IT infrastructure. So can we, whether we're being consolidated by a hospital or private equity, can we manage that complexity? And what I would contend, having done it for the last 10 years of my career in the boardroom, is it's easier said than done. So with that, we can go to the next slide, Manish, or unless you have any questions on this one.
Yeah, I just had one quick question on it. So obviously with all of this that is going on, especially the consolidation, as well as the introduction of new kinds of virtual and telehealth capabilities, it's obvious that different businesses must come together, which means that not only business processes but also technology systems should come together and integrate with each other. In your experience, how long is that generally taking today?
Well, look, I mean, I think when they write the epitaph of at least independent physicians, the Marcus Welby of our era, it will come down to that the demands of EMR implementation and practice management systems implemented under Obama tipped the private doctors over, right? Whether it be cybersecurity, whether it be integrating with hospital systems, the dream was that EMR and practice management systems would seamlessly communicate with each other to take out redundancy. The reality of that is far from the truth. What you end up with is disparate systems with multiple bolt-ons to achieve the full functionality of the systems you've implemented. And then you get into rapid consolidations where multiple systems are being managed at the same time. The complexity of that as you grow is almost overwhelming. And so you have a difficult choice to make. Do you migrate to a single system? And we've seen repeatedly that hospital systems or big practices that migrate practice management and EMR take a pretty sizable step backwards before they can go forward. Or can you integrate these various systems and use external resources like Dr. KPIs to aggregate pertinent information into one common data mart and then push that information no matter what system the user's utilizing?
That definitely. The traditional build versus buy scenario, and also best of breed versus integrated systems. So definitely a big challenge. Ashin, if you want to move to the next slide. So this is where what I think the result is, where there is insights is suffering, and not just insights, but how do we get data in one place is obviously being affected. Dr. Wisor, would you like to talk about this from your experience?
Sure. Look, I don't care if you're the Cleveland Clinic who are buying hospitals in Florida, or the Mayo Clinic opening shop in Arizona, or you're a physician, private equity backed platform of physician consolidation undergoing roll up. Getting actionable real-time data, let alone forward-looking AI predictive analytics, is challenging, right? So most management teams, unfortunately, are relegated to working with performance in the rear data. It's already too late to impact that. I can think of, hundreds of small scenarios where projecting how the organization is going to perform becomes infinitely complex. Just, you have health information that is trapped into silos, and, often you can get good practice management dashboards. You can utilize Microsoft BI or other, and your vendor of practice management, whether it be Epic or NextGen or others, can provide you a dashboard on how you're financially performing. But when you try to implement all the operationals, the HR, the marketing, the call center, the prior authorization processes, et cetera, it becomes infinitely more complex to get all that information. And so you end up in a boardroom, at least in my case, looking at how you performed over the last 90 days, but you have no idea how the next 90 days are going to go. And if you're a healthcare investor, or you're really concerned about performance, talking about what happened in the past is useless, right? So predictive analytics offers a really interesting kind of proposition. For example, every year I'd sit in a board meeting and we would look at the data and how we performed relative to how we projected we might based on historical. And there would be challenges on what day of the week did this year's holiday fall on. When did Yom Kippur occur? When did 4th of July occur? Did it occur on a Thursday so that more likely we were going to be closed on Friday? And all of these things. What was the vacation schedules? Was there wraparound vacation used? All of those small things have impact on how you perform, but you can't see it in real time unless you have AI implemented. It says, hey, based on historical performance, based on when the holidays are coming, based on vacation scheduled by the providers, here's how you're really going to perform. And so I had finance teams and operations teams always, just pulling their hair out, trying to figure out how are we going to do. And it's amazing to me, no matter how big you become, we were an organization, as I mentioned, with 300 providers. It's amazing to me how just the vacation schedule of a couple could impact the predictability of how the entire platform performed. It's kind of the Margaret Mead principle, very small amount of people make a huge impact on the organization's performance.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a excellent understanding of how predictive analytics could help. Just taking a step back from predictive analytics, just sticking with typical traditional business intelligence, in your experience or what you see in the industry, how are those needs being met today? Is there a lot of lag and latency when you request information and time spent for preparing all of these reports? And what does that look like today?
It's difficult if you were on a unified system, but imagine if you're a consolidating platform or hospital system and you're operating multiple systems. It's virtually impossible. So you have management team, which has always, is being stretched thin on every front, tabulating the results because you've got all of these different systems, because it's not just financial performance, right? The operational metrics of the KPIs that drive, whether it be the backfill metrics, or whether it be time to answer a phone call at the call center, whether it be prior authorization delays, those metrics end up being bolted on and more often than not manually tabulated. And again, by the time you have that information, given the amount of expenditure of resources to get it, it's long since in the rear that you could never impact it anyway. It's already old news. And so at best, it directionally tells you on opportunities for improvement, but it doesn't allow you to look forward over the next quarter and say, here's the incremental adjustments. Like, for example, you might say, we need temporary nursing given the vacation schedules in the next 2 months, or we need a locum tenens physician, or we need to employ, X, Y, and Z. We need to have strategic discussions with these payers who are delaying the prior authorization problem. If you don't have that information, like we say in our video, like Edward Deming said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And so you end up having management teams feeling like they're babysitting old news, and investors frustrated that they can't in real time take actionable steps to improve the outcome for patients and improve the outcome of the performance of the business.
Yeah. And I can see Ashin nodding vigorously to some of those comments. Ashin, what would be some of the data and technology challenges you see given all of this, fragmentation? The typical,
Yeah. So interestingly, Dr. Wisor himself brought it up, right? Like it is not about just the traditional BI anymore. It's Power BI dashboard that used to solve some of this temporary situations, but being be able to predict is a critical factor. And from there, technology-wise, integrating with disparate systems, how much our holistic, enterprise architecture could be. Most of the times, we have seen that a lot of systems come into play, and data is everywhere. So bringing together all of them, putting them in a warehouse, in a data lake, lake house, whatever you want to call it, right? And deriving insights out of it is always the technology challenge. There are quite a few solutions out there that are started emerging towards this challenge, right? Pulling together data, making sense out of it. But it is a long way before we have all this as a granted solution. So that is where when Dr. Wisor brought this up as a challenge to us, and we started looking up how we can put all this together. The architecture that we would be discussing in a few minutes, made sense. How we can bring all of this, make it possible that it is a cost-effective solution, and also resilient, right? So we don't have to keep running around fixing things, and repeating this for each and every provider that we bring in. Being a B2B SaaS solution, it is very important that it has to cater to a majority of the platforms, and exceptions should be handled as exceptions, not a norm. So that is a technology challenge that we have addressed in the architecture. Yes.
Yeah. And I can imagine if there are so many different systems and so many different organizations working with each other, just pulling data from everywhere and making sure that the data is high quality and can be used for intelligence itself. That itself is it's a big thing. Okay, so with that, I think let's move on to the next slide quickly, and just talk about the blueprint a little bit. So, Dr. Wisor, you alluded to some of these topics. On the top, we see some of these KRAs, which are not just limited. So that's the comprehensive view. Would you like to talk, maybe a little bit more about that and the common data blueprint part?
Sure, Manish. I mean, one of the driving forces behind this is like, look, I was managing an organization with 1,500 people in it, and you have these various departments. You have the chief marketing officer who wants to present the net promoter score and the Google star rating and the patient satisfaction survey results. And you have the, finance team presenting all their financial, and you have the ops team presenting the KPIs that move, all of that becomes a board deck that is, 75 to 95 slides in PowerPoint. And again, all in the rear. Our goal was to create an app, based program that you could use, whether it be on your PDA or your desktop or an iPad, but to have all of that information in one stop and funneled and consolidated in a way to present so that the management team could understand what's happening in real time every day, get actionable updates, and B, any investor or vested party, whether it be a private equity or a hospital board, could look at these key metrics from all these disparate systems and gathering tools in a consolidated way. And so, in the end, it has to be about better patient care. And if better patient care is not only the quality of outcomes, but the driving the cost down, this is how you can keep a bird's eye view of what's actually happening in your organization and across multiple channels. And the beauty is you can customize it based on what your organization values most. It's not a cookie cutter. It's actually a dynamic living organism within the company that can be really tailored to what your needs are most.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think that common blueprint, the data fabric is going to help a lot, because once you have a common data blueprint of what needs to drive each of these KRAs, then it's very easy to just pull data in a selective fashion, hook into the system that you need and pull it, rather than trying to create a monolithic architecture. So with that, I think let's Ashin, let's move to the architecture that will drive the blueprint. Do you want to talk about this complicated looking slide and make it simple for all of us?
It's pretty simple, and like maybe you will see what I see when I start talking about it, right? Don't go into the nitty-gritties here. Let us call out from the top, right? You see some bigger boxes, and I will point it out. So we have data ingestion, obviously, in any architecture, and particularly with applications like this, data ingestion is a major area from where all the sources that feed in the data. Then comes the data processing and storage, then the artificial intelligence, and then the applications. So if at all there is something that would be new for some of the audience, it would be the artificial intelligence piece of it, right? But at a high level, the data processing happens. But do of course, have to highlight that the way we do it is what makes this a feasible solution and cost effective. So if you look at here, Manish, the Ignitho data accelerator is what actually elevates a lot of the technology challenge that we were talking about. Trying to answer all the challenges that comes from the data ingestion and the veracity of data that flows in, right? The Ignitho Data Accelerator again is AI based. It is capable of understanding the target and then look at the source and then automatically distribute the data to the right targets, or then in this case to the data lake. So that's the critical factor which it takes care of. And once this is done, all of the other aspects such as governance and consolidation becomes a breeze, right? And once this is in, then we have put in a trusted AI mechanism to build and enhance the AI models that build some of the most important use cases. Some of them being the lookalike modeling, the footfall model, and the revenue forecast model. We'll see that how it gets implemented in the demo. But here, what I would like to call out is that so these are some of the aspects that enable those challenges that Dr. Wisor was talking about. Like for example, the footfall model is what is enabling the prediction, right? Without having what is going to be the prediction of the kind of people that are coming in, and of course taking into consideration everything from weather to politics and news and to holidays into concern. These models are built and tuned to make sure that the prediction is as near as it can be. Obviously there is always this, percentages of predictions capability, but as good as it can be is something that the data that is backing it up enables it to become, right? So again, after that, if you look at, obviously there are all this non-functional requirements, as we call it in the architecture terms, right? Functional requirements being what Dr. Wisor called out, non-functional in terms of security, encryption, authentication, whatever complaint is required to make sure that this are provisioned and are available for the healthcare providers. All of them are made available to then from a endpoint. It is even available on the phone and the iPad, so that it is made sure that you are able to look at it at a glance and on your move. I believe, Dr. Wisor, would be waking up to this and have a glance at it before, sip on his coffee, right? To see how is it going to be today. Should I take 2 shots of cappuccino or what? Right.
So that's where I saw the iOS and the Android app. So being mobile first would definitely help that. But Ashin, there's a question that has come up in the chat, which is, I think, pretty important and very relevant here. So on the left-hand side, where we are doing all the data ingestion, right? How are we going to simplify some of that? Because there are so many of these systems from where data needs to be pulled in. And of course, it may or may not be in standard forms. Hopefully, it will be in standard forms in many cases. There would be, so, what are some of the strategies that can be used to simplify the left-hand portion? Are there connectors available? Because I recently read some news about Microsoft, getting into the, making some tools available for healthcare, as well as some other entities as well. So, how does that, what are some of the things that would simplify that piece on the left-hand side? Because that, I think, is going to be a biggest driver of building such an architecture.
Sure. I will take a step back here. I wouldn't talk just about this architecture, but any such similar architecture that anybody would be willing to build and put together, right? So from that aspect, like you rightly said, the choice of a platform to support this is very critical. And when we say platform, there could be solutions like Domo and others that are pre-built with connectors. Because in today's environment, it is not feasible to start building and putting together all connectors from the scratch, right? So that is very important to align ourselves with a proper platform. And once we have such a platform, it is just a matter of then allowing this platform to enable us with those connectors. Obviously, connectors is one part of the solution to this problem, but yes, there are other aspects like like you mentioned. I'm trying to elevate that and call it out using the Ignitho's data accelerator. But that is a challenge that any enterprise has today. Having the connectors and bringing the data is not good enough. Being able to
Correct.
optimally churn it and be making it available for the data lakes to cater to the rest of the downstream application is very important. So from that aspect, it's very critical that there are accelerators or there are solutions that is built to churn turn the data to a and obviously there are common challenges like data quality and all that is being addressed in many platforms, but most of them are very user heavy or the developer heavy solutions, and somebody has to sit down, make changes periodically. So that is why
Yeah.
these kind of solutions become costly for healthcare solution provider. If you say somebody even to the size of what Dr. Wisor was saying about 1,000 2,000 people, you do not want a IT organization of 25 or 30 to be a very mean and lean system to call out, to be supporting such a system. So that is where
Yeah.
solutions like ours that we are putting together, Dr. KPIs, would be a breeze. And once you have this, you plug in, you enable those customization. And when I say customization, it's not just from the ingestion point of view, right to the application side, as you would see in the demo. There's a fluid user interface. It's very much customizable to the needs and focus. Like not two CEOs are alike, I would call out. So
Yeah.
if Dr. Wisor has a like and feel that he wants to see on his first look, there would be a totally different set of KPIs that some other CXO would be looking at and some other provider would be looking at. And there are again multiple personas that we are talking about. We are not just talking about the leadership, right? We are talking it
Yeah.
to the extent of the end caregiver. So all of them need to have that data provisioned and made available to them in so many different formats. So from that
Got it.
aspect, yes,
Yeah.
flexibility is a very critical factor.
Awesome. So just one last question on this one that has just come up in the chat again also is uh, I think what they are trying to ask is, so you've got the AI models right there. Uh,
Yep.
so these AI, how are these AI models going to be used? Are they feeding into the business dashboards, and how are they then feeding into the operational system? So how are you actioning some of these insights? So how does that architecture take care of that?
Okay, so I'm not going to give away all of the secret sauces making this solution, but yes, no, this is not way too secret. It is a common architecture, Manish. Like there are if you see arrows here, right? That pretty much calls out. The artificial intelligence layer takes information from the processing and then gives back to the storage as well, right? So we have built put together architecture so that most of the time AI models are not so there are two forms. Again, I'm being careful not to disclose too much of information, but there are two models. One that enables what if analysis, is right, something that
Yeah.
run on the edge, making it possible to give flexibility to the viewer to call out and find out or enable decision making on the fly. And then there is a larger set that is possible to rest and do processing on a offline mode, something that kicks off when the set of data comes in. We have there are streaming data and batch information, right? So when a bunch of batch data comes in, we pre-process them, and we use some of these models to run and keep this information ready so that it's available for the user to pick up on the application.
Yeah, and a couple of months ago, I think we also did a webinar on the customer data platform that we had built on the Domo platform. And there we had showed that the outputs of the AI models, the insights, would be made available in real time to the applications that want to use it. So
Yeah.
would this architecture kit, lead into that kind of
Yeah.
real time implementation of insights also?
Exactly. So, like you see in that edge services, right? The edge services are not just basic APIs that do a CRUD operation. They are edge services that trigger the AI models from real-time insights. Like for example, like we said, let us take the example that Dr. Wisor was mentioning, right? So he wants to understand what is going to be the prediction after 3 months. But it is not just that. You can throw in a variance into it, and you can say, hey, compare this practitioner with that, and then give me a prediction of where these two are going to be, or who is going to be better off in the next 3 months of sorts, right? So
Got it.
those kind of permutation combinations are not all going to be possible if you're going to have them run offline and be ready to deliver. So some of them would be enabled through API triggered AI. So maybe that's a term I'm coining, but yes,
Okay.
that's something that's very important, because some of the times it is not just enough to like you rightly said, have these models run an offline store. So as
Yeah.
in the CDP, this is surely possible here, and there's some of those models that are triggered through real-time invocation from the app too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's excellent, because I think the last point I wanted to make is, so having that vision is important, because it also means that as your insights are then fed into the operational systems, the
Yeah.
data that the operational systems are generated come back on the left-hand side, get ingested again into the architecture, and then they result in updated models. So it sort of
Exactly.
creates a closed loop analytics, which is obviously the holy grail of where we want to go ultimately.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome then. So I think let's, on the next slide, I think you've got a couple of pre-built, these AI models. Let's quickly go
Yeah.
through them and then dig into the demo.
Sure. I think some of them were called out earlier, but just to address some of those that we were discussing, right? Lookalike modeling that you would see in action in the demo is something that makes it possible for a for any practitioner, or for that sake, who is the end user of this application, to be able to compare themselves from where they are, compare themselves to a peer, compare themselves to a region, or the entire platform itself, and see, okay, I'm doing good, or I have to improve, and there is a possibility, or is it just a trend that's happening, and something drastically different has to be done in order to increase the outcome of the care that is being given, right? So that is one thing. Like I mentioned earlier, the footfall prediction and the revenue forecasting models are very critical, so that all the other fast factors and aspects that would enable, based on the data from the platform itself, would be providing guidance to the users. And when I say user again, all the personas in the system, the operations team, the caregivers, as well as then the the CXOs, all of them would be able to get this as a very important future looking method. Right. Then apart from that, there are these other models like the fake review detections, basically the ones that are enabling the solution to review and provide, what's really relevant, and to keep away unnecessary, the distraction from this care providers. And on
Yeah,
top
I
of
think
it,
that's really going to be,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead, please.
On top of it, like I had mentioned, the data accelerator has a load of AI modules that are enabling it to do those transformations seamlessly between the sources and the data lakes that we have put together. So yeah,
Okay.
sorry, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think that's right. I think you answered your point I was trying to make. Okay, so why don't we dig into the demo now, Ashin, and Dr. Wisor, please feel free to step in and zoom in on some of the KPIs that you think would be important.
Sure.
So yeah, I'll just call out. So the application comes with all the necessary integrations. Like for instance, you can integrate with the platform. The platform can be integrated with the providers AD, and once you are in, there are different personas, like I mentioned. But in this case, we are talking about our caregivers. Persona is a doctor's view would be. So again, it's not fair to call this a great demo, because I wouldn't be showing how fluidly we can make this changes to the user interface. But all of this are customizable, right? So but for now we have called out some of this KPIs so that it is easy for the participants to understand how the solution is going to cater the information to. So broadly classified our information across clinical operations, productivity, and then the community in general. So there are capabilities like the MIPS data, for instance. There are graphical representations of the data to show how it is representative compared to the region and the platform in itself. The information can be switched from the MAPS to TIN. The Google ratings can be viewed, and and again, here you will see that there are ways to compare this data across multiple aspects. Like for example, you will see what is your data and how you compare to the platform in terms of this NPS, for instance. Right? So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is
So I just add to this, Manish. I mean, so customer experience drives their likelihood to return and to tell others, right? Whether you use Net Promoter Score, or Google Star Rating, or patient satisfaction, et cetera, right? How the experience goes for that patient is really a high predictor of the likelihood of others to come or them to return. And it's very difficult as an operator to have a discussion with a particular office or provider about this without this data in your hand. So you can go into the office and say, hey, some of the people there's a trend here where they're not having a good experience, and the doctors will reflexively say, well, it's not my fault. I mean, I'm doing a great job. Well, are you? And here's the data compared to your peers. More people are complaining about the time to answer the phone, or more people are complaining about wait times in the waiting room. If you can give doctors real information and you have it at your fingertips as an operator, where you can drill down from the regional level to the center level to the provider level and really share with them, your providers drive the organization's health. Whether you like that or face that reality, you're going to have to engage them in a way to give them the information in a transparent, easy to use fashion. You can't go to them once a year and show them, here's where your review were last year, because they'll make excuses. This is real time, monthly. Oh, we've decided to focus on answering the phones better, and here's what happened over the last month. Real time actionable data.
Yeah.
True, Doctor. So yeah, exactly. So that is where the architecture comes in, and this information, like I mentioned, they are near real. Again, I wouldn't call real time because it is not fair for that architecture technology wise, but it's a near real information that maybe as soon as or as latest as yesterday would have flown into the systems. All this AI running on off it and providing this insight. So yes. So I'll just call out a few of these features. So there are aspects where you can, look at the information is pretty much straightforward. Again, most of the, go ahead, doctors.
Yeah, so I mean, just to call out a few of the features, right? Like, you could spend a ton of money on marketing and search engine optimization, but if you don't have availability within a reasonable time frame in a new booking window, you've essentially just wasted your money, right? So we show people what is their new patient booking window? What is their time to schedule between an actual evaluation and a surgery or a procedure? These are the critical things that in our organization drove results. And of course, again, you're going to decide what is it that actually drives better performance in your organization, and let's get that available to everybody in their hands.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Like your payer, I can assure you people that, running an organization and being in the CEO seat for the last 5 years, there is no product that exists in the marketplace that gives you all of this information. It is reams of Excels and subtabs and PowerPoints to tabulate this if you're doing it on your own. The ability to have operational, marketing, financial, call center, you name it, any department, HR, performance, to have all of those things is really what makes this so unique, and why in partnership, during my past CEO reign, we spent the time to do this because there was no amount of peripheral bolt-ons I could get to get this to match.
Yeah. Awesome.
True.
Great. So yeah, Ashin, so just one thing. So how are you, so obviously it goes to the data quality issue. So how are you making sure that the data coming in is accurate? Is that because of the common data blueprint that we saw in the conceptual model?
Yes, there are a lot of checks and balances put in place, and like I mentioned, the accelerators that are there also enables to run through DQ checks dynamically, and also bring through set of fine-tuned data. And on top of it, AI is not just used only for capturing this insights and turning them to predictions. It is also used in to enhance the data. So that is where a lot of that would have been manual in a typical enterprise solution is automated, and makes it possible to seamlessly stream through and enable faster transformation from source to target.
And there's a question in the chat which is how not everybody would want to see all of the KRAs. So
Yeah.
basically, how do you customize the KRAs? So if somebody, an organization wants a different set of KRAs to be seen first, how does that happen?
So there are two aspects to your question. Over here, one, there are roles and privileges existing and fully configurable, which makes it possible for different levels of the organization to see different set of KRAs and whatever is applicable. Obviously, you do not want one physician to be looking at the data of another, maybe from a comparison perspective, yes, but not in a real time situation, right? So those kind of checks and balances are put in place. We have a fully customizable role and privileges solution that enables multiple levels and multiple responsibility privileges made possible for each of these roles. So that's one aspect to what you asked. The other aspect is tomorrow, let us say Dr. Wisor has asked for a totally different KRA, right? So he's saying, okay, I do see this today, I can see that, there are a bunch of information. So there are two aspects to this. Some of this are DIY, and when I say DIY, we are not going to give it to the CEOs and the practitioners to build it. These are fully customizable solutions that are possible in the background with very minimal, or no code changes. But and then if at all there is a totally different aspect to it, a totally different dimension and set of facts that need to be brought in, there is a process that this organization, this system is put in place, a more agile way of implementing changes. So generally when there is a let us say a totally new KRA that has been brought in, what we have seen is that anywhere between 1 to 2 sprints, or within a couple of weeks, we have been able to turn around those new additions to the KRAs. So that's surely possible.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I would only add that, physicians are competitive by nature, Manish, right? And so it's up to the organization to decide how much information they want their physician to be sharing. So it can be blinded. In our case, we did it. Hey, I want to see my data compared to my peers locally and then across the entire enterprise. But I don't want to be compared to my peers in a different state who have a different, delivery model. Maybe we work in ambulatory surgery centers and they work in offices. So you get to pick and choose what visibility based on sign-in the individual is going to get, from provider all the way to front desk personnel. You don't give people information that their job description doesn't allow them to impact the results, right? So why give the MA information about call center performance if they can't impact or improve the call center's performance? So it's thought out in conjunction with what the management team, based on the job description, wants that person to see.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Ashin, do you want to go through any other part of the platform?
I think I have called out. So, like, there are the usual aspects, you can enable, and as you see here, the placeholders are something that the provider can implement for their physicians and different roles. So these are all dynamically choosable, and once these are all added, they will be able to provide more and more information.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think again, it's customizable based on what the organization needs. Like in our case, we wanted the ability to create IT help desk things. We wanted to have them have access to their benefits card. We wanted them to have access to a master contact list of who do I call when the router's not working, or when the TV in the waiting room's not working. So it is, again, at the discretion, but to have it all in one place so that your team, your management team, your doctors, your front staff know where to go to get the information about the organization is what makes it so unique.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, great. Awesome. So I think so we covered on touched upon some of the some of the key features of what such a solution should look like and what some of the features that Dr. KPIs already has. So self-serve, it's got predictive analytics capability, customizable, and obviously role-based access and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's great then.
I'd just like to share one closing thought, Manish. It's if you're an organization that is growing both organically but by acquisition and consolidation, the reality is those beasts got to eat, right? Like they are really hungry, but the rate of being able to acquire and consolidate is really limited by your ability to integrate and to take a new system and be able to export what they're using as their key fundamentals that made them attractive as an acquisition target and not have to disrupt their business day one. If you're a private equity roll-up platform and you can integrate within 30 to 45 days, key aspects that the platform can deliver on and they can see it. In order for anybody to be acquired at the physician level, you have to offer them improvement over what they had as tools to run the business. This is a monumental step that can be turned on for really de minimis cost. It can be built into your model. I mean, it's, we tried to create this in a way that it was less than the cost of adding an IT FTE resource, right? By affordably pricing what it can do and partnering with these groups, you can integrate them faster so that you can get on to the next M&A opportunity. And so I think personally, look, if you're trying to build a big organization, it becomes very unruly when this thing starts taking off by acquisition. It is one thing to build from the ground up, the same box everywhere. It's a whole nother animal to grow by consolidation and acquisition. So
Awesome.
I strongly consider rolling up your sleeves and learning more about how to do this, because having been in the CEO chair, I know how frustrating it can be.
Yep. And I think on that then, so as part of next steps, so Ashin and, of course, Dr. Wisor will be available for a strategy session if you would like to discuss your current landscape and the challenges and how would you go about building, this kind of a solution, and whether you decide to, adopt Dr. KPIs and give it a shot or, take it for, implement it as a pilot. Some of those roadmap definitions can also be taken care of during the strategy workshop. So feel free to let us know. And if you have any questions, of course, we are open right now. But you could also send an email either to Scott Nugent you see on the screen or to Ashin, and then they'll field your questions and get back with the next steps with you. So with that, I think I just see one other question that is coming up, Ashin, which is. We discussed a lot on this webinar, right from, we saw that beautiful architecture, but what do you think is a practical, a roadmap, a practical maturity model for organizations like this? So I'm paraphrasing the question, of course, but that's basically saying, how do they go about to the end goal? So what does that, roadmap look like? What should they do first, before they try to implement AI? What would be the steps, that they need to take?
Yeah, I think, on a lighter note, it's as simple as writing a mail to us, right? To get this and implement it. But if you want to, do it yourself, the DIY method will be to implement solutions. First consolidate the data sources and then make sense out of that information, and then build visualizations and then provide this information to your provider. So there is no easy step. So that is the reason we have went all aboard and built this or put this platform together, which enables providers. But I'm just trying to make a comical statement there. But from your face, it doesn't look like Manish. Really metrics.
That makes sense. I think you hit upon the key maturity things. I would say that the first step, is obviously to send you an email, but also to look at their existing data landscape and see what kind of, information is available in what kind of systems, and also maybe get an idea of, that landscape, so that if and when they do decide to implement such a solution, they can hit the ground running and they know where what are the different pockets where the data is and what needs to be, imported into that data blueprint, so that.
So it would be actually, that's a good point what you mentioned. See, it would be surprising, like for example, Dr. Wisor can, vouch on this. You would be surprised to know that, if you wait for all of the data to align, you don't make next steps. You can start as simple as with the, bare minimum, basic appointment information, right? The encounter metrics is good enough for you to start seeing those insights. A lot of the people fear AI because they think, okay, you have to give it the best data possible and all the data possible. But we simplify it in a way that, you give the bare minimum, we can start with it. And as and when we go in this journey, we will enable you, right, to bring in more sources. We will enable you to, identify that, okay, this were there and, this were not in a form to, be fed into the system. So that all that we can work together to make it possible. So, but make a first step. It is always better to start moving than waiting for change to happen. So that is what I would recommend.
Yeah, that's an excellent advice. Yeah, excellent advice. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the webinar. I don't see any other questions, so let's wrap it up then. And then and we'll just, for everybody logistically, we'll be publishing a copy of this recording, as well as send you a copy of the presentation deck. If you need it, just feel free to send us an email, and we'll send you the presentation deck. But you will anyway see that in the video recording that will be shared soon. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Wisor. Thank you, Ashin, for a great session. And see you next time.
Thanks, Manish.
Thank you, Manish.